everything I love and hate about Path of Exile 2 so far. I've been playing PoE 2 ever since its early release back in the beginning of December. Now I've only completed about 3 acts and a couple of Ascendancies. It may not seem much, but unlike in PoE 1, PoE 2 takes considerably more time, and as I can only play on weekends when I'm off work, for me those 3 acts take a lot of time. Currently I have around 30ish hours on PoE 2, while for the game that is as big as PoE 2 that may not seem much, but I feel like that's enough for the first thoughts and first impressions, and as I go further into the game I will keep you guys updated. So without wasting too much time, let's get into the things that I love and hate about PoE 2 so far. Let's maybe start with the things that I love about the game. Probably without any surprise, but that would be visuals and graphics. For me personally, this is one of the first dark-ish games that has this like dark style to it, dark graphics that I love. Every time I play other games that have this dark aesthetic to them, I just always end up abandoning them. For me, video games supposed to brighten up my day, make me have fun, get away from everyday struggles. However, nowadays, people seem to call nearly every game trash unless it's like some super dark themed game and it is super difficult to beat, otherwise it's just a trash game. I personally not a huge fan of that trend, as life is already as hard as it is, and I'm not always looking to complete yet another challenge. For me, just my work week is a challenge on its own, and I believe that's for many people as well. And sometimes I just want to have fun, and I believe where many fail, PoE 2 succeed. Yes, it's not easy. Yeah, it's a dark themed game, it has these dark aesthetics to it, but crucially, unlike many other games like that, this one actually is fun for me and extremely pleasant to look at. I also love the variety of areas, some of these desert-like areas, other swamp-like areas, and then you have areas like this, like the castle type of areas, and honestly everything in between. There's just so many different type of areas, it would be hard to even mention them all. And just in general, the amount of things to look at is just astonishing. I remember the first day I played, I barely cared that I was getting my ass beat by every other boss, and that was simply because I was just in awe just how good things look. There are literally 0 ARPG games in the market that come even close to how good PoE 2 looks, and it's not even a competition. Now the other thing I love about PoE 2 is that although it feels different to PoE 1 in a lot of ways, yeah, but crucially, it didn't lose that, that hook to it. That one more map, every time I'm thinking about shutting the game down for the day, I just think, you know what, just one more map. Maybe I'll drop that helm or those gloves or whatever am I missing at the time, and it will make me just a tiny bit stronger, and it will make my life just a tiny bit easier. And in general, just the overall feeling, the vibe to the game, yeah, it feels different, but yet somehow familiar. It's so hard to explain, but if you are a fan of PoE 1, I think you will understand what I mean. I also love the simplified skills and those skills menus that they added. If you're a new player, it's much easier to get around, and at the very least just not be completely lost. But also, if you wish, you have a complete freedom to do whatever you want and use whatever skills you want. The menus are there to guide you, but not to restrain you. You can do whatever you want. But if you are a new player, I think that the skill menu is a fantastic addition to the game, and I love how you can click on the skill and it will show you a brief video description of what it does. It will not only explain you in the text, but also there's a voiced over explanation. To have this thing in the game is fantastic for new players, without a doubt. There is no downside to it. Obviously, if you're a new player, I would still recommend a guided build for new players, but at least these skill menus make it where new players might not quit after 2 minutes of the game after seeing the passive skill tree. I also love how you can respec reasonably easy. I've been respecing my strength, intelligence and dexterity nodes every couple of maps, depending on what skills am I using and what kind of items I have at the time. No longer do I see a piece of gear on the ground and thinking, I cannot equip it, I guess I'm just gonna sell it or just not even bother to pick it up. Now if I see a piece of gear that I think is better than what I have, but I might not have the stats to equip it, I just think, okay, but let's go to the town, let's respec and just equip the piece of gear that is better than what I have right now. And I love that. But you know what I also love? I would love for you to subscribe to the channel. And then you know what I would love even more? If you would also like the video. How crazy is that, huh? Anyway, now let's move to the other thing I love about this game, but also I hate at times, is the combat. Now don't get me wrong, the combat feels amazing. Moving with WASD is a game changer in my opinion. But also, I feel like it's a must in PoE 2. I just don't see how you would comfortably and optimally play PoE 2 with moving with mouse. There are too many things to do and too many things to focus at, and there is so much freedom in the combat. So if you move just with a mouse, I feel like you are restraining yourself. This is not a PoE 1, and it should not be played as PoE 1. I also think that their skills, their animations are just phenomenal, just 10 out of 10. I literally have no complaints in terms how they look and feel, they're just awesome. However, the few things I dislike about the combat, the first one being, not all classes are created equal. To be fair, it is somewhat the same in PoE 1, but some classes just feel way stronger than others, and there's not much you can do about it. I think any class that don't have to be in melee range of the boss is already a little bit ahead of the one that has to be, and that's even before you consider anything else. Now, as far as the bosses consider and how hard they feel, I saw a lot of complaints, and I'll be the first to admit, in the beginning I also felt like that was a bit maybe too much, but after playing a little while, here's my thoughts on that. Do I think the bosses are too hard and uncompletable? No. Do I think they are just the right difficulty? Yes, but there's a but. I think that the bosses in terms of difficulty are just about right, but in quite a few cases I believe the bosses have too much HP, which leads into multiple rotations of the mechanics, in which itself may not be super problematic aside from the fact that it's just a little bit annoying that it takes a long time to defeat the boss. But what is annoying is that some of the bosses have one-shot mechanics. I always said it and I always will, I hate one-shot mechanics and they bring nothing of value, they don't make the game feel any more fun, they don't make me wanna try to retry the boss, they only piss me off and wanna make me shut down the game. Now, if I only had maybe skip 1 or 2 one-shot mechanics per fight, I guess that'd be alright, but due to quite large HP bar of bosses, and if you don't get lucky with item drops, and maybe you're not the best at building your character, you might have to avoid multiple one-shot mechanics during your fights, and if the HP bars of the bosses were a little smaller, that might not be the case, and the longer the fight, the more chances you're gonna mess up. And believe me when I say, the second you get one-shotted when the boss is at like 1 or 2% HP, that's the easiest uninstall for a new player if I ever seen one. Another thing I love and hate about the maps and the campaign, and I don't mean the endgame maps, I haven't been there yet, that's a topic for another video, I mean the campaign maps. On one hand, they are gorgeous, the variety of maps and locations and things to explore is huge and vast. I think that the maps in the campaign are just fantastic. The only issue I have with them is just the size really. When I started playing, there was no checkpoint teleportation, so the size of the maps were even more brutal. Now they added checkpoint teleportation. That did solve the problem somewhat to some extent, but for me it didn't solve it completely. For me, I still think they are a little bit too big. When you need to find something and you walk all over the map, it takes forever. Some maps have multiple exits that lead into nothing, and then you have to backtrack and look for another exit, and it all just takes way too long in my opinion. Now I'm completely fine with playing this for the first time. If this was one of those games where you complete the campaign and then you for the most part never really go back to it, I would even argue make it longer, make the maps bigger, but it's not that type of game. I know that I will create many characters, level up many characters, max out many characters in years to come, and when it takes me multiple weekends, because that's the only time I can play the game, just to complete the campaign before I even get to maps, it makes the replayability aspect, and I can't stress that enough, how important the replayability is in PoE. It makes it so much more harder than the PoE 1, because in PoE 1 I could easily complete 10 acts within 1 weekend, and if I really wanted to, honestly I could complete it in a day. And that made me want to create new characters and explore new maps in different playstyles so much more. It made it so much more compelling. Here, however, when I think about the new class, I immediately cannot shake the thought of just how insanely long the campaign is before I even get to map. I feel like this will make the replayability aspect of PoE much more difficult compared to PoE 1, and to put it simply, with my work schedule, I simply could not create multiple new characters every league, simply because I wouldn't have the time to do it, and I believe that will be true for many people in the working age. Now another thing that I both hate and love about this game, it's party. Now I love it because it makes it so much better, faster and easier to go through campaign compared to playing in solo, that it is not even close. But at the same time, the difference between playing party and solo is so vast that it just makes no sense playing solo if you have friends or a group of people to play together, not only you can revive each other during boss fights and maps, which in itself makes it so much better because if one fails, the other one can still complete the boss fight or find a moment to revive you, but also the boss fight itself will be so much quicker. You kind of also have multiple chances in the boss fight because in some boss fights my friend died like 2-3 times and I kept reviving him, and instead of going again and again and again, I simply revived him and we didn't have to go into the boss fight yet again and again and again. That means you retry a lot less and you save a huge amount of time, but also because the maps are so huge, by playing together you can spread out and find multiple exits much quicker at the same time. You go through mobs much faster, bosses are easier, you can nearly couple tap some of the easier bosses in the game. Also, while the boss is focusing on one of you, the other one can just spam his abilities and upkeep the DPS. You also have more drops that you can share between one another, so that means you have better chances of getting items that you need. Gold is split separately, so there is no fighting for the gold. You can teleport to your buddy, so that means if I find an exit, my buddy can just teleport to me and avoid walking altogether. Honestly, there's so many positives and so little downsides to playing in party that compared to solo, it's not even close. It's hard to even compare, which makes it somewhat annoying as PoE always been one of those games where playing solo is kind of the norm. And yet another thing that I love and hate about this game is the Ascendancy. I like the Ascendancy for the fact that it varies a bit more now. There are different kind of challenges, but I also think some of them maybe are a little bit too punishing. Oh, and I absolutely despise and hate the honor system. I think it just should be flat out removed from the game. You should never fail any kind of challenge without dying. The fact that you can fail Ascendancy simply because some bar at the bottom of your screen goes out and you might not even be close to dying. It's just stupid design in my opinion, and there is no reason to have it. Also, crucially, I think that Ascendancy OP in PoE 1 was a bit too boring and a bit too the same, so a little change makes it nice, I guess. While they succeeded in some ways in making the Ascendancy a little bit more varied, but I would also say they kind of failed in others. What I also love about PoE 2 is the shops. Now they're actually useful. You know, like pretty much every level I go to see the vendor, and by the way, every level your vendor reset. While for the most part when you go to vendor there won't be anything crazy there, but every now and then you will find one of the juiciest items you can, and that item might carry you for acts to come. And if you just flat out don't get any items, you're completely unlucky. Honestly, the items in the vendors usually gonna be just about enough to get you through the acts, more or less anyway. So the vendors are actually important and actually useful now. However, there are some things that I hate as well. One of them being, with this being a new game and all, they had a chance to reduce some of the things that were just annoying in PoE 1 and make them better in PoE 2. And for me, one of those things would be trading. And I know, this is a hot topic, and some of you want an auction house like in WoW, while others will die on a hill just to not have it. I am personally fine with having to message people and go to them to pick up your items that you need. There is only one thing I wish they changed about the trading system. Just add a trading system in the game. I hate it. And I mean, I hate it that I have to go to a website. Just make it so I press a button and the exact same menus that open up in the website open up in the game instead. That's it. That's all I ask. I hate going outside the game for anything other than a guide. I also slightly hate how everything loads just seems for so long. Maybe it's just me, but it feels like every other map that you enter it takes a while to load. And man, don't even get me started on the map itself. Like, why the frick does it have a loading screen? And why it takes so long to get loaded? And when I get annoyed that it's loading so long and I press escape just to close the menu, I still have to wait it out till it loads. Like, why? And the whole design of the map is just bad for me. Visually, yeah, it's nice and all, but it's so hard to tell if you missed anything, if you missed any bosses. Sometimes I even struggle to understand, okay, where do I need to go even? Nothing about this map is intuitive. It looks nice, yes, but it's not intuitive. I also think reworking passive skill tree to make it easier to follow for new players was a little bit of a missed opportunity. That still will be one of the things where a new player opens up a passive skill tree, seizes it, and immediately turns off the game, just simply because it will feel so overwhelming. I understand that many veteran players would like to keep it as it is, and they would go outraged if this was to change, and I'm not saying they should remove anything, anything, just make it more understandable, more visually understandable and simplified to look at, so when a new player opens up the passive skill tree, he doesn't immediately get overwhelmed. I don't know how you do that, but I'm sure there was a way. But at the end of the day, my friends, this game is still in its early release stage. This still has only half the acts and only half the classes, and I'm sure that GGG will see the things that could be improved and they will improve them. How do I know that? Well, just 2 days after the game was in early release, people complained about the drop rate, not enough checkpoints, being surrounded by the mobs and not being able to roll out of there. And just a couple days after, they fixed all of those issues. They hear you, they listen to you. If there's anything you wish them to know, don't be hesitant, as this is one of the few developers that will actually listen to your feedback. And overall, I think this game is the best ARPG right now, and likely for a while to come, even with all the little issues it has. And I'm not worried because I know those issues gonna be fixed, and I can't wait for them to release it fully and see what's next to come. I personally still have so much to complete, so many bosses to beat, but I'm loving every minute of it, and considering this game is gonna be free on its release, I mean free. I spent $30 on early release supporter pack to play it now, and even that gave me currency in the game. Honestly, if they just keep the price of $30 after the game will be in full release, I would still say it's a bargain. It absolutely is. It's a great game that will only get better as time goes. The next update on my journey I will give you will be the one where I reach the maps and complete at least a little bit of them. But for now, my friends, let me know your thoughts in the comments. What did you like and hate about PoE 2 so far? I'd be very interesting to know that. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you, my friend, next time. Take care.